What's up, squad? It's Brandon from the Bantu Sun. Thank you so much for joining me today. So let's talk about the recent pact between Japan, the US, and the Philippines, being called the Trilateral Pact, which is our series of agreements between the three countries to grow and strengthen economic and security ties. Now, I think this is probably one of the major developments going on in the world. Is wars everywhere. It's a lot of conflict. But this is a relationship that I find to be quite interesting, especially when you're contrasting it with who's on the other side, China. So you're probably never going to hear a better summation or summary of what geopolitics really is than what I'm about to tell you right now. What geopolitics is not bullying, it's not purely oppressing, but it's the recognition of one's geographic realities and acknowledging them, understanding what you can and cannot do in a very real and necessary way, and building strategic alliances which allow you to benefit from structural advantages. The advantages are inherent in the alliances, which is why the alliances are strategic. Now, there has been no culture, a long line of civilizations which have utilized this better than the West, primarily members of the Anglo nations, primarily delineating from the UK down to America, and America has been the most exemplar performer in utilizing geopolitics. Regardless of what many pundits have said or other historians, America, going from a small coastal enclave on the Atlantic, going sea to sea across the pond to Hawaii, has shown an exceptional utilization of geopolitics. And you know who hasn't shown that? China. And this security pact, this economic pact, this trilateral pact is representative of it. What do I mean by this? You have three countries. Two of these countries, Asia, this is where the front line is going to be, right? This is the geographic reality. Japan, 2 atomic bombs dropped on them by America. The Philippines, one of the few countries in the world that can actually say they fought American imperialism directly. There are not that many places in the world that can say that America subjected them to colonial status such as the Philippines did. The Philippines literally can say they fought a war of liberation against America. Why I say this is that both of these countries have had not only verbal or antagonistic relationships with America, but very vitriolic physical confrontation through war, bloodshed, and suffering with America. And yet you find no two greater proponents of American presence in Asia than these two countries. This shows how America has been able to garner and build alliances despite past history that would allow them a structural benefit. China, on the other hand, China cannot get out of its own way. This is their backyard, after all. And the rise of China, which should be seen as this glorious rebirth for Asia, East Asia in particular, is seen as this volcanic eruption of chaos and danger for China's neighbors. This shows you that China has learned nothing since the colonization of Asia, since the Opium War, since the burning of its imperial palaces. China has not learned anything about building relationships and alliances. When you look at the two greatest benefactors of relationship with China, China's closest allies, I would have to reference possibly Pakistan. I think these countries have been in cahoots for some time, decades and decades and decades, since both of their foundings, and they have developed that relationship in a trusting way. Another country would be North Korea. Similar background. It was China who helped defend North Korean invasion against the Americans during the Korean War. Now, when you look at these countries today, at this time in the 21st century, are these bastions of economic development, stability? Are people going to Pakistan and North Korea to understand how to develop their economy, develop trade, provide a better quality of life for their citizens? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. That is not what is occurring. The countries closest to China, the ones who would know best the benefits of the life of being next to China, are seen as some of the most backwards cases of civilizational development in the world. Pakistan, high rates of terrorism, it's borderline chaotic. Can't even hold an election. Imran Khan, Prime Minister Imran Khan. North Korea, one-man rulership. His sons inherit the rulership. His son inherits the rulership. This is a nuclear basket case. Not what I think. This is what the world thinks. The world is concerned about what North Korea is going to do with their finger on the button. In fact, if you was to ask any country why they deal with relationship with China, they would say because China will allow them status quo. And therefore they can do whatever they want because China just want access to their ports or to their facilities or to their resources. But China has not really benefited a nation culturally, from a civilizational point of view, from a character point of view. When you look at the countries that were part of the British Empire, is there one without a parliamentary government? Or without a similar legal framework? This is where we talk about this soft power and why the West is able to continuously outcompete countries that would seem to have a greater advantage. I don't think this situation is a total loss for China. I look at countries that are not in this pack, which I found to be interesting. South Korea. Even though South Korea is a very strong American ally, great trade ability, trade relationship with the United States, the U.S. even went so far as to start putting nuclear submarines to be based in South Korea. This trust of security and technology is massive. But South Korea, whether it was the United States or South Korea, someone did not feel comfortable with them being at this table for this conversation, for this growth and strengthening of relationship that the U.S., Japan, and Philippines are embarking upon. Taiwan, of course, another benefit for China, is showing that America, despite further investing its efforts into East Asia, the Asian Pacific Rim region, they're not further integrating Taiwan, which will obviously be hostile to China's interests there. Indonesia is another one. Singapore, another one. These are all strategically important countries in this region. But it's only Japan and the Philippines which has built this ironclad relationship, or trying to implement this ironclad relationship with the United States. If China did know foreign policy, which they have proven over the centuries they do not, they will be put a delegation on a plane immediately to go to South Korea with a suitcase basket full of free trade agreements. Because that's all these countries really want. Philippines, do they really care for America? Or do they care for American access, security guarantees, access to technology in the capital? Same with Japan. Japan demographically is a stunted nation. They need markets. China has 4 times the population of America. So even though America is farther away, demographically smaller than China, these countries are going towards America because of the trade and benefit. And one will have to say this has to be chartered, or you can say that this has to be related to some type of bravado, some type of ego. I think of the movie Zoolander. It was about a model, and his great flaw was he couldn't be a great model because he had an inability to turn left. Whether that was a mental block, a character flaw, he could not turn left. And this is what China is proving. China is proving that it does not have the ability to build strong relationships. This is a concern. And this is why I always say China is not the big problem for the U.S. U.S. have way more problems in India, but China is not. China has done what so many economies have done before, but they celebrate as if they've done something new. They follow the model of Japan, of South Korea, and to some degree Singapore, where they're piggybacking on the West technology and growth, and they go to the West and say, we will be a workshop, and we will take care of all of these lower-end manufacturing. And this is great. This has proven to be the quickest way to economically develop your country, is to be a workshop for the West. But of course, there are diminishing returns as one goes up the economic ladder. So, although China says they've done much to come out of economic development, what they have done so far has not been that special. And what is going to require for them to truly be something more than just a paper dragon is an embracing of creativity, a sort of a humbleness in foreign policy. America, you think Americans don't want to protect their markets? You think Americans want to compete on jobs with Asian labor? But they open their markets because they trust their people. They trust their people are going to take those imports and they'll lose some job, but they'll gain more because those imports, they'll be low-level imports. And the Americans, they'll rather have the cheaper imports, give it to them people, have their people invest in that excess capital of time, labor, and currency to develop an even better product on top of the import that they have. Does China expect or appreciate the same talent in their people? Or does China surround itself with tariffs and protectionism, scared of global markets, global competition? It's a race to the bottom. That's the true race for the bottom. Blocking imports for your citizens to take advantage of and to utilize and build on top of those imports some added value, which would then further their quality of life. I think it is so interesting comparing these two models and seeing the proof is in the pudding. America's a net exporter of oil. China's a net importer of oil. America's a net exporter of natural gas. China's a net importer of natural gas. America's a net exporter of agriculture. China's a net importer of agriculture. China depends on American pigs out of Iowa and American soy out of Illinois. It is not the other way around. And how has America been able to constantly go up the value chain of resources and goods, despite these countries being roughly the same size? And it's the American ability to grow, develop, and value add through technology, which they build upon their global trade. So I really think China, until they have a more open mind, until they think of more of just control, which I think their policy and mindset is made up of, a lot of these authoritarian regimes are built that way, with the head honcho at the head of the table, unable to lose the seat. That they can't even go to the bathroom, scared somebody's going to try to take his seat at the table and upset the entire regime. This is a great contrast between these two models. And I come in as an unbiased actor, but the fruit from the tree is self-evident of what these two models actually produce at the end of the day. So those are my thoughts. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Comment below. Like, share, subscribe if you enjoy the content. And until next time, take care. Bantu up.